So we got this battle over the election still playing out, and we also have the fight against COVID happening, the two biggest stories in the country right now. And who better to talk to about both of those things at this point in time than my friend John Cardillo, formerly of the NYPD. He's a conservative commentator, TV and radio host. John, how you doing down there in Florida?
Doing pretty well. We're in a red state here. We did pretty well in November, despite the insanity, and things are relatively open. Down here in South Florida, the bluer counties, Miami-Dade, Broward, Palm Beach, still some restrictions, but by and large, we're back to business as usual.
It's amazing, isn't it? Because up in New York, we're just getting, it's like the boa constrictor of the state is just squeezing and squeezing more every day.
Yeah.
But the cases keep going up. And I keep pointing down to what's happening in Florida and saying to everybody, well, why is it that New York is worse off than Florida? They have more seniors overall in Florida they do in New York, who are the greatest at-risk population, particularly over 70. And yet we're told, oh, we have to just do more. I mean, you're in a situation, John, down there where Governor DeSantis seems to be actually putting on a clinic for other governors of how to handle this. It's not perfect, but it's sane.
Yeah, look, he's given, he's basically handed out a mandate that says these local petty tyrants, they can enact their own local rules, in line with what's historically and legally sound, but they can't engage in these draconian findings of businesses or send the police in to shut them down. So DeSantis has essentially neutered them, for lack of a better choice of words, these local officials who just, you know what it is, Buck? You know this. You and I have spoken about it online, on social media, and offline, right? It's local officials who just want to exercise that little bit of power they have. And if they can crush a business or ruin a kid's experience at school or tell you can't have 10 people in your house, that's where DeSantis stepped in. He said, enough of this nonsense. We're not going to put up with this in Florida. So he's really taken the teeth away from them. So, for example, down here, they can no longer fine a business. If a business allows me to walk in without a mask on, sure, it's still against these arbitrary and capricious rules, but they can't fine me. The business can't be fined. They can't come in and shut the business down. Now, the problem is that's as it pertains to COVID and these mask rules. So what the little petty tyrants on the local level are doing is they're saying to the business owner, well, maybe we can't fine you or shut you down, but hey, the governor's order doesn't prevent us from sending in the health department and the fire department and the code inspectors. So they're still harassing these businesses that are operating legally. No one is dropping dead in the streets. It is sickening. It is sickening tyranny, Buck. That's all.
Wow, there's local level bureaucratic harassment. I should have expected that. And, John,
never heard of it, right?
Yeah, we had here in Staten Island, up in NYC, we had Max Bar and Restaurant that was the site of this protest, and you got the owners, and I've spoken to the lawyers representing them. I thought it was so interesting, and the lawyer, particularly when I talked to him for the owners of the restaurant, so interesting that Max Public House, these guys that are sent in are sheriffs, not NYPD. Classic.
Yeah, man. Let me tell you something. Out of all the time I spent with NYPD, I think I saw 2 New York City sheriff vehicles. I don't think I ever once interacted with a New York City sheriff. They were around. They had these red and white cars at the time, but I never interacted with them. We would interact with New York City marshals, those guys who are appointed by the mayor and they do repossessions of vehicles and evictions. You'd see them out there. We'd get called to back them up sometime. But I don't remember once, and I was in a high crime area of the Bronx, ever coming across the New York City Sheriff's Office. I don't
think I've ever. I mean, I worked for the NYPD, as you know, John, for a little while, right. Not as long as you did, and I've lived in New York for over 30 years. I don't think I've ever seen a sheriff before. So
thank you. Exactly. Yeah.
It's amazing. But of course, if you're going to bring somebody in to do something like that, I almost understand that at some level. It's like, don't stain the NYPD, which you're really going to need, by sending them in. They told me they sent in 20 guys, John, 20 guys to one bar for the crime of serving burgers and beer, when 2 blocks away, there were other restaurants that could serve burgers and beer, but they were in the wrong zone.
Yeah, like the orange zone or the autonomous. First of all, this is all dystopian craziness that we now have zones where we have no-go zones in American cities. And look, you talked earlier when you opened the show about cases. I want to see a lot of cases. We see a lot of cases of the common cold. We saw a lot of cases of the flu before it got COVID and died. There's no flu anymore, apparently. What is wrong with seeing cases where the mortality rate goes into these fractions of decimillionth percentages? Everyone should want that. But the left is now using that as a way to grab more power and to say, we got to shut you down. And look, Buck, I believe, and I'm not a conspiratorial guy, but this is achieving an objective they've always wanted, which is crushing the private sector and making people dependent upon government. And, if you're a person that distrusts government, you might think they're hyping this up a little bit to bring more power to themselves.
And you see this also, John, where the small businesses, I was actually stunned. I did a deep dive into it on my own earlier this week because the media, they have access to this data. The numbers are out there. When you see businesses, not that temporarily closed, but that are believed to have shut down permanently in major cities, talking about small businesses, so not, national chains and not the big box stores, individually owned businesses, the numbers are already, and we're about to go into this winter of, 100 days of masking that Biden's saying and everything else, 30%, John, 40%. In some places, New Orleans looks like it's getting closer to 50%. This is, I can't even estimate off the top of my head how many thousands, tens of thousands of people whose life's work. I mean, if you're a sole proprietor, if you're a guy who owns a small business or a gal who owns a small business and it goes away, you've built that brand, you've built that neighborhood community tie. It's just gone now because people like DeBlasio and Garcetti and Lightfoot and you name it feel like it's too dangerous.
And they all get guaranteed paychecks on your dime. So you're paying for them to put you out of business, to take your family's livelihood, to take everything you've ever worked for. Their paychecks keep coming, right? And, go back to Florida now. One of the very fortunate byproducts of Ron DeSantis being conservative and proactive on this is that where I live in Fort Lauderdale, there's Las Olas Boulevard, the main drag with bars and restaurants. Only one well-known place went out of business permanently because of COVID. One on that strip. And it was one of those that was about a 7 or 8 chain place in Florida. And they were starting to fall off anyway as new places opened. But fortunately, the governor here, Ron DeSantis, stepped in quickly enough to save a lot of these mom and pops. And we're noticing it. My neighborhood's coming back very strong now. These guys only have, Buck, this, they only have maybe 30, 60, tops 90 days of operating cash reserve. They can't afford to do this. Their employees are going broke. The owners are going broke. The landlords that rely on those rents to sustain the properties and pay the property taxes. I mean, the effect of this is devastating. So thankfully, there are some governors that get it.
And I know we're in an emergency, but people don't want to even have to think about this right now. But with economics, with monetary policy, there's always cause and effect. Trillions of dollars, John, that we're spending this year. We're going to spend trillions more next year to try to undo the damage that the trillions we spent this year was unable to do. So that's something I'm very worried about. We're speaking to John Cardillo, ex-NYPD and now conservative commentator. He's down in Florida. Luckily for him, he's not here in the dystopia of the 5 boroughs under DeBlasio. But let's switch gears for a second, John, to what we saw in Georgia. I mean, we could focus in on that, right? There's a lot of stuff we could talk about. You and I have both seen everything the president said on the election fraud. We're seeing all the tweets. We're seeing the legal team. I know you're in contact with them. I'm in contact with them.
Yeah.
I mean, Georgia, to me, it's like, well, they got people on video with briefcases or suitcases full of ballots that after hours, at a minimum, I mean, if you were doing an investigation back in the day for the PD, wouldn't this be like justification for a warrant? Wouldn't this be something you'd say, oh, I think we got something?
Yeah, it's funny. So literally 30 seconds before you and I started this interview, I was texting with a couple of mutual friends of ours, guys like Ned Ryan and Kurt Schlichter and Jim Hansen. And I said exactly that to them. I said, hey, we've all been doing a real good job, you included, of debunking a lot of these crazy conspiracy theories around voter fraud, these CIA and Delta shootouts in Germany. I mean, this stuff is crazy, right? But I said, hey, as former law enforcement, what we're now seeing in Georgia, that to me anyway is probable cause. I would have no problem as an investigator now going to an assistant district attorney or a state attorney general and assistant state attorney general and saying, hey, look, we've got something here. give us the subpoenas we need, give us the warrants we need. Let's go take a look. Let's get some people in the interview room. Let's start talking to people because this sure looks bad. I personally think, I'm not familiar with Georgia law, but the probable cause standard is pretty uniform across the country, that now Brian Kemp, the governor of Georgia, should have done it last night, order the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, their state investigators, one of a top-notch agency, very talented investigators, order them to make this their priority and find out what in the world happened. I'm with you. I think we've got enough evidence now to launch a full-blown criminal investigation.
And there should be no problem here. I mean, if you were a person,
Right.
you're one of the people captured on this video, wouldn't you want to just say, well, no, I mean, here's what we did, right? It's very, either there's something shady going on or there's not. And they should want to be able to clear themselves right away. But I also think it's, I know bringing up the media, John, it's the media we've got, right? I mean, you live in America with the media we have. I wish we could change it. We can't, but it doesn't mean I'm going to let them get away with stuff like this. Could you imagine if there was a video of what were believed to be, Republicans, perhaps pro-Trump people after hours doing this? Every single person in that video would already be named. They would have news crews out in front of their homes. They'd be saying, what did you do? What's going on? They'd create this frenzy. And instead, we just have these grainy videos. And it's like, those are just poll workers doing what they do. No big deal. The media has no interest.
Yeah, I mean, look, we had 15 FBI agents show up in a NASCAR garage because of a rope to pull down the garage door. They've got video evidence of voter fraud. And this is just now, well, okay, let's say video evidence of alleged what perceives to be voter fraud or election fraud or even theft of data for whatever reason. But like you say, get these people in an interview room and find out whether it was something they were supposed to do. Maybe the protocol was for these workers to take the disks and the hard drives and this paper and store it this way and transport it this way. And if that's the case, there'll be a paper trail of that. But if it's not, then it's going to beg more investigation. And real last point, look, every investigation, this from your time with PD, is about a timeline. We need to be investigating what happened on election night criminally. Those timelines, investigations with teeth, with warrant power, with subpoena power, as to why when doors were supposed to be closed and the lights turned out, things were still going on. And that's when those votes for Biden were miraculously showing up. Now, it could be legitimate. I don't think it is. But let's break down the timeline and account for every second, what happened in every second. This is the presidential election. This is the heart and soul of this republic. We need to account for every one of those seconds.
You're still in this fight till the end, John?
I am. Look, I'm a pragmatist. I know this is tough. We've got to hit 15 shots from the outside. We've got to hit 15 three-pointers and hit everyone perfectly without hitting the rim. And that's a tough hill to climb. But I think we need to do it. We need to let it run its course. But at the same time, Buck, we need to also expose fraud if there was, I believe there was, simultaneous to electing the Republicans in Georgia. I don't care what you think about Perdue and Loeffler. We cannot afford to lose the Senate. If you live in Georgia, get out there, vote. Do not let America wake up to a majority leader, Chuck Schumer.
Absolutely. And I want everyone to have the same mindset here about Georgia. And if we find fraud, even if it's insufficient, if we find that there were 1,000 votes changed somewhere, we should know what happened and how it happened, because
that's right.
Margins in the Georgia Senate election could be very, very narrow. And we don't want to go through that. We don't want to have this nonsense where the media pretends that there's no reason to ask these questions. John Cardillo, everybody. John, stay tanned, ready, and rested down there in Florida, my friend. Good of you to join us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, I can't wait to see you down here and grab dinner, Buck. Great talking to you.
Absolutely. You take care, buddy. Hey, Team Buck, thank you so much for watching The First on YouTube. If you like this video, please click that little thumbs up button so then it will log as liked. And also, if you want to see more great content from The First, please click subscribe.